Well, students, today we are going to see physics chapter number 12, friction. And in this chapter, what topics we are going to see, let us just summarize it first. Friction, it is a bit of new chapter to you. We know what is friction, but some things scientifically we don't know about the frictions, and that we are going to learn. So in this chapter, what we are going to learn is what is friction. Okay, what is friction? Then we are going to learn causes of friction. Causes of friction. Okay, then we are going to learn types of friction. Okay, so in this chapter what we are going to learn step by step: what is friction, causes of friction, types of friction. Then we'll learn about advantages and disadvantages of friction. Advantage and disadvantage of friction. And then we will learn, if it is advantages, then what is to be done, and if it is disadvantages, how to reduce friction. Okay, so this much things we are going to cover in this chapter. What is friction, causes of friction, how many types of frictions are there or forms of frictions are there, advantages and disadvantages of friction, and the ways and methods of reducing friction. Okay, so let us start. So what is meant by friction? So first topic that we are going to see is what is friction. So what is meant by friction? We will take some examples, then you'll come to know what is meant by a friction. Okay, suppose on a field, on a football ground, you are playing football and you kick the ball and there is no one in front of you. How much far the ball will travel? The ball will travel to a distance. Suppose here a field is there, here a ball is there, and you kick the ball will travel up to a distance and it will come to a stop at some place on the field. That means when you kick the ball, at that time you are applying a force to make it in a motion. Okay, you have learnt in the physics chapter in 7th standard also, and in force and pressure also, that you need a force to make an object moving. Okay, so when the ball is kicked, you apply a force, and at that time the ball starts moving, but the ball stops at a place. And if you recall the knowledge from the force and pressure chapter, you will understand that what the force can do, a force can make a stationary object to move. Okay, a force can make a stationary object to move, and a force can make a moving object to stop. So what is the force doing here? A force is, in the first case, when you kick the ball, the force is making the stationary object ball to move, but after some time the moving ball stops. That means there is some force acting on the ball which makes it to stop, because these are the causes of force. Whenever a force is applied, there are 3-4 causes: that the shape changes, the stationary object starts moving. So what has happened here? The ball started move, that means a force is applied, and the ball has stopped. That means some force is applied on the ball which makes it to stop. And what is that force? That force is nothing but it is the force of friction that makes the moving object to stop. Okay, so when you are traveling on a cycle, on some roads you feel that the cycle is moving or your bike is moving very smoothly, and on some other surfaces, like suppose you are traveling on a highway, the cycle or the bike moves very smoothly. But if a small road is there or a village side road is there, you see that your bike is not moving so swiftly or so easily. So there is some force acting on the tires that are causing the bike to move slowly. Okay, so friction is a force which acts on an object either to stop it or either to slow it down. More details we are going to see. Let us read from the book. What happens when you push a ball? It rolls but gradually slows down and ultimately stops. What makes the ball stop? When a moving object experiences force from the opposite direction, it slows down. When a ball is rolled on the ground, the surface of the ball and the surface of the ground rub against each other. This gives rise to a force that acts in the opposite direction of the motion of the ball. Such a force is called friction. It slows down the motion of the ball. Friction is generated all the time during the motion. Friction is a force that results when two surfaces rub against each other. So what has happened? When we are moving a ball, the force is applied from this side. But if you want to stop the ball, the force should be applied from this side or to slow it down. That means friction is a force which always acts in the opposite direction of the moving object. And why the friction is generating? Now when the motion is taking place, this is the surface of the ground and this is the ball. So there is a continuous friction between the surface of the ball and the surface of the ground, and therefore due to rubbing of two surfaces, these two surfaces are rubbing with each other, and therefore the ball stops after some time. That means the friction, we can say it is a negative force. When you will go to higher classes, you will come to know that friction is termed to be a negative force. Why negative force? Because it acts in the opposite direction of the object. Okay, so this is what is called as friction force. So now after explaining this, what we come to a conclusion that what exactly is friction? Friction is nothing but it is a force which acts in the opposite direction of a moving object. And why friction is generated? That when the two objects rub against each other, at that time friction is generated. Now when I am writing with a chalk on the board, the two objects are rubbing with each other. Therefore the friction is generated. When you write on the paper with a pen, at that time also the friction is generated. Okay? When you are matching a matchstick, अगर आप matchstick को light कर रहे हैं, when you are lighting a matchstick, there is a friction between the paper surface and the matchstick, therefore the matchstick is lighted. So there are many things, there are many examples where the friction is generated. Okay? When you walk on the ground, there is a friction between the surface of the road or the surface of the floor and your shoes or your legs or your or the beneath of your leg. So therefore friction is everywhere. If you try to write with a pen on a glass surface, a ball pen, it is not possible for us to write on a glass surface because the glass surface is very smooth, and therefore we cannot write on the glass surface with the help of the pen. Paper is rough, so therefore we can write on the paper. Let us read. We are able to light a matchstick because of friction. To write a certain amount of friction is needed between the pencil and paper. Try writing on the smooth surface of a glass tumbler. Can you write? The brakes of vehicles work because of friction. A bicycle has hand brakes on both wheels. When you apply brakes, the brake pad rub against the rim of the wheels. The friction generated between the brake pads and the wheels makes the bicycle stop. So how the bicycle stops or how the vehicle stops? There are brake pads which rub against the rim. So if you see on the rim from the below side, there are brake pads and they are attached to our brakes. So when you pull the brakes, these brake pads rub against the rim of the wheel and the bicycle stops. So what is happening here? Rubbing is taking place between two surfaces, rim and the brake pad, and the brakes are applied and the vehicle stops. That means friction is a force. In higher classes you will learn that friction is a negative force. Now the second thing, so we have come to know that what is friction? Friction is a force which opposes the direction of motion. It is acting in the opposite of the direction of the motion. Now we will see what causes friction or causes of friction. as we have already said that friction takes place because of rubbing of two surfaces. So what happens that we have to see about the two surfaces. Okay, suppose if a soapy water is there on the flooring, okay, on your floor a soapy water is there, साबुन का पानी अगर है, example in the bathroom, and you hard step on that water, what happens? You sleep down, you sleep and fell down. Sleep यानी सोना नहीं है, आप sleep होके आप फिसल जाते हो and then you fell down. So this is an accident. But why this is causing? Because there is a less friction between the surface of the between the surface and the feet. Okay, why? Because of the soapy water. The soapy water reduces the friction, and because of that reduced friction, we slip off and we fall down. Okay, so what causes friction? What helps your teacher write on the blackboard using a chalk? It is the friction between the chalk and the blackboard. A rough surface increases friction, whereas a smooth surface reduces friction. So here we have seen, here we have to see that if a surface is rough, for example, suppose you are traveling on a highway, the surface is smooth, so the vehicle moves very steadily and easily. But if the same vehicle travels on the village side road where there is a muddy road, at that time the vehicle slows down and the vehicle is not moving at a faster speed. That means highway is a smooth surface and the muddy road is a rough surface. So on rough surfaces the friction is high, and on the smooth surfaces the friction is low. What happens? If you clearly observe, suppose there is a box here and it is on a surface, okay? If this box is kept on, so suppose you take a box, and if this box is kept on a smooth surface like tiles, it is possible for us, if you apply the force here, it is possible for us to move or to push the box very easily. But if the same box is kept on a sandy surface or on a rough surface, you will find it difficult to push the box. So if the box is kept on the surface, this is the surface, you will find, if you minutely observe, minutely means under the microscope, you will find that the surface of the box is rough. Though it, to the naked eyes, it seems to be very smooth, itna bhi smooth box le lo, but exactly there are some rough spaces between the boxes on the surface of the boxes. This you have to observe under the microscope. And the surface on which the box is kept, it also has rough spaces. Okay, so what happens? Suppose you magnify this, these are the rough spaces of the box and these are the rough spaces of the surface. So what happens? These rough spaces, these spaces gets interlocked in each other, and then the friction is caused. Why the object is stationary in a position? Because of the frictional force. Because of the frictional force. Unless and until you do not apply a force more than the friction force, this box is not going to move. This box is not going to move. So what is the cause of friction? We call this as grooves and ridges, or roughness and irregularities between the two surfaces that gets interlocked with each other and keeps a stationary object in a stationary position. Let us read from the book. A rough surface increases friction, whereas a smooth surface reduces friction. Friction is caused because of the roughness and irregularities of the surfaces of the two objects in contact. When rough surfaces brush against each other, their irregularities come in contact. Many of these irregularities interlock. This increases friction between the surfaces. So these irregularities interlock with each other and the friction is caused. So this is the main cause of friction. So up till now we have seen what is friction. It is a force which acts in the opposite direction when the object is moving. And what are the causes of the friction? The rough surfaces, the surfaces are rough of both the objects, and the irregularities or roughness gets interlocked in each other. Interlock means एक दूसरे में फंस जाते हैं, and therefore the friction causes. Okay.